I was thinking a lot about why some people become resentful, why they become so hateful. And suddenly it came to me that when you begin taking your comfort for granted, then where you start hating the entire world because your slow degradation into your physical kind of worshipping, when you yield to every your biological urges, makes you hateful toward those who try to become better in their own biological frame. Life is all about your personal control, how good you in control of your own personal chaos, because everything around you is constantly falling apart, and what you're trying to do is try to keep it as structural as possible. Otherwise, if you just don't do nothing, everything will fall apart and you lose the thread that helps you to accomplish your goals. That's what life is. You keep learning about yourself. You keep analyzing your decisions. You try to figure out how good is your idea. You test your ideas against the world and against yourself and see how much sacrifices you can make for those ideas. Because ideas in some sense define you. If you have no ideas, there's no you because you live through your own ideas. That's how you pursue your life, liberty, and happiness. There's no other way because you need freedom for pursuing your happiness, and your happiness is your idea of life. Otherwise, what's the point to have liberty if there's no pursuit of happiness? And there's no happiness if there's no idea to what you want to follow. And this interpretation of your own reality, interpretation of yourself inside of this reality makes you you. And the way how you define yourself in your life gives you opportunity to move forward. And how exactly am I define my life? What's the point of my life? Always ask myself this question: what's the meaning of my life? What's the point to wake up every morning and do something again and again and again and again? But the point is, that's your meaning. Your work is your meaning. It doesn't matter how you feel. It matters what you do, because your action defines you, not your words. Because words, you can just say words. Words are cheap. The actions, that's what define the man. And you have to do this to define yourself first, because other people, they do other stuff. It's their world. You live in your own world. You trap inside your skull. You trap inside your mind, and you try to figure out what's the point in everything. And it's so easy to get out of shape. It's so easy to take everything for granted and become resentful and hateful, and start playing with the identity politics, and to find another ideology that would, in some sense, shape your hate into certain channels where you can, in some sense, practice your hate through certain ideologies. Because we have them a bunch of, in America, a lot of people can find their ideological hate that justify their personal hate. In some sense, you think if you're not successful, it's because of certain historical injustices, and you try to link yourself with everything bad happens in this country while forgetting everything good that might happen to you and already happened since you're alive and well. We have to be very careful not to sink ourselves in these dialogical indoctrinations. And that's why I always try to figure out, you have to know yourself, you have to learn about yourself, because once you learn about yourself, there's going to be no place for resentment. Because resentment comes from lies, when you cannot understand yourself, when you deny this understanding of yourself, when you cannot truthfully face yourself. Once you truthfully face yourself, there's no place for resentment. There's no even sense for resentment. Why would you hate other people when you know yourself and you kind of comfortable inside of your own skin? You only hate others and become resentful when you're not comfortable inside of your own skin. That's why you want to hurt somebody. Otherwise, why would you do this? We only hate others because in some sense we hate ourselves, because we cannot control our own passions, our own desires, our own urges. Once we learn how to control them, the hate toward others disappeared because the hate toward ourselves disappeared. And that's, I think, the reason why people become so resentful. Because they imagine out of themselves something they are not. They never tested this against reality. They never tried to look carefully at yourself, because not everybody should be rock stars or Hollywood stars or billionaires or millionaires. Sometimes simple understanding of life and simple goals helps you to become a better person for yourself, and then other people see you differently. But this internet created people who always look at other people. Constantly they look at other people and try to be like other people, forgetting that you cannot be like other people. You can be like yourself, because that's what you are. You're just yourself. You're just the person who you see every day in front of the mirror. And if you don't want to correct yourself constantly, if you don't want to improve yourself constantly, you'll become worse. And with a worse physical shape, you become more resentful, more hateful, more cowardly, and more miserable. And in the end, you're just going to hate the entire world, because the world as itself doesn't exist. You just hate your own world. And you try to project your hate, this personal subjective experience upon the world, upon objective reality of other people, upon objective reality, and try to convince others, look, my subjective experience is real. And in some sense it is, but if you project your subjective experience upon objective reality, then you try to convince other people that the objective reality is horrible for everyone. We have to mutilate it, we have to change it, because objective reality offends my subjective experience. And that's the problem. Yes, once you have this feeling that your subjective experience getting offended by objective reality, then your goal to destroy objective reality and adjust objective reality to your subjective experience by forcing other people into silence. That's what happened now in America. People want to get offended over everything. And the problem is they don't understand that it's just your subjective experience and nothing else. And what you do, you should adjust your subjective experience to objective reality. Once you do this, suddenly you become ally with objective reality. It means you become ally with other people. Because that's what we do. We project our subjective experience upon objective reality. We try to adjust to objective reality, because only this way we can communicate with other people that live outside of our subjective experience. Once we understand this, our subjective experience would improve. That's why we learn. That's why it's very important how you see the world. I still remember from my childhood this saying that two people were watching the world through the bars, through metal bars of their own personal prison. One saw stars, the other saw dirt. That's the idea. It's what you see outside of your subjective experience. The problem is, if your subjective experience is lousy, the objective reality you see is lousy as well. If you want to see racism in everything will propagate, because you will see racism literally in everything. If you want to see evilness in everything, you will see evilness even in infant. You will see evilness even in kitty cat, in everything. It doesn't really matter, because your subjective experience in some sense like a lens. And through this lens, you're able to see objective reality. But the problem is, you can color this lens with the horrific colors or with the good colors. It depends. Or you don't color this lens at all and try to perceive objective reality as neutral as possible. This way, you will receive better navigation inside of the objective reality. Once people become too comfortable, they get obsessed with their own personal subjective experience, and what they do, they think that the entire world has to accommodate their subjective experience, because they wanna never get challenged on their subjective experience, because we always get challenged. If I want something and I can't get it, there's two options. Or I'm not deserve this, or the world works against me. It's always that we don't deserve certain things. I don't know why people assume that we deserve everything we want. We have rights on everything we want. No, you have to work hard. And if you get some, like if you get 10% of your dream, wow, that's a lot. And nobody owns you nothing. The guy you see in the mirror is the guy that your main enemy and your main friend. And you create your subjective experience out of your constant work on your self-knowledge. The more you know yourself, the more accurate your subjective experience. Because if your subjective experience rely on social media and constantly being manipulated by social media, you don't have subjective experience that link closely to yourself. What you have some sort of hybrid version of subjective experience of others that you confuse for yourself. Because if you go online and you see other people's subjective experiences they propagate across their social media, you adopt their ideas, and suddenly you don't think like you yourself, you think like them. And therefore you're losing yourself more and more. What you need to do, you have to study yourself, you have to read books, try to understand your subjective experience, and then objective reality of the outside become more clear. And suddenly you feel much more better, much more content with you inside your own skin. That's the whole idea, and only then you can actually understand what is good and what is bad, and you're careful to certain ideas that, like virus, go into you and create out of you some sort of a lunatic who screamed on every corner how everybody is bad and obsessed with other people's life. This makes sense, because what you do, you learning about yourself to be accurate in your subjective experience of yourself, to develop right attitude of the objective reality toward objective reality, because you cannot change reality. It's there, but you can change your attitude toward reality. But for that, you have to have your own personal subjective experience. Once you have it, your attitude toward reality would become much better. Yes, learn yourself, know yourself, identify your subjective experience as something that is extension of you, not other people, of you. And how to do this? Read books that helps you to understand the world through yourself. And once you understand the world through yourself, the objective reality of the outside will be less threatening, because your attitude toward this objective reality would change as the result of your subjective experience that will become more you than other people.